Parler, 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 parler. Live.
We are live. Jodia, not parler Kreyol. It's all about parler, our language.
Okay, I'm glad you set it up that way because, I think what we ended up last time is really grabbing hold of a history that connects us to our spiritual roots as well. You know, I'm curious because although both of us grew up in South Florida, both of us have Haitian parents, both of us were born outside of the country. We know that our parents unintentionally or intentionally left us some jewels when it comes to the language of Creole and meaning and its essence. And so I'm curious to know, what do you think some of those intentional lessons for you when it came to like leaving a message as far as that Creole language? What were some of those memories as far as Creole, what they wanted you to keep, what they wanted you to remember? I see you digging through the crates.
I'm trying to think, I think my parents wanted me to see that we weren't from here. I think it was just like the distinction of just understanding that culturally we were from a different place, and that language kind of geographically placed us in a different space. So even though we were in America, we were in Miami, we were still in a smaller bubble, right? Because being Haitian is like another microcosm of another microcosm. And then we were Adventists too, so that was another, smaller thing that brought us together. But I think they just wanted us to know where we came from. I think the language essentially was about rooting us back to the island. How about you?
Yeah, I grew up in the Bahamas. I was born there, and I remember this is funny to me because Creole is my first language. English is my second language, so Creole is my first language, because I was born to a Haitian family and they were in a foreign country, but all they spoke was Creole at home.
Mm.
And if you go out, what Haitians say, l'école, la caille, l'église. School yet, so it was Creole at home, and I think it wasn't until I started school in Nassau that English was formally introduced. Of course, it was introduced because we had to navigate around Nassau, Fox Hill, stuff like that. But primarily, Kreyol, And so, surprisingly for me, when I do go to Haiti and I speak what I call my C minus Creole, they embrace it, man. They like, okay, you're using what you got, you're doing what you can with your little Creole, and it makes them, feel more connected to someone who was outside of the country, born and lived outside the country, but still makes an effort to feel connected in a way with the language, So I think my parents, unintentionally, they planted that seed deep inside of us to where even though none of us were born in Haiti, nous parlons petit créole, nous la petit créole, nous capable.
Creole.
Nous get chance, every chance we get, we gonna speak a little Creole, especially because it's a language that if we don't protect it,
right.
There's so much that comes with it too. And so if we don't protect it, it will be lost.
Yeah.
There was I don't know what to call her, and I can't remember her name. Her name is escaping me, but she advocates for the language of Creole a lot.
Yeah.
And one of the things she said was that if we let the language of Creole die, it's almost like we're letting the island itself perish away.
Yeah.
Because where the island came from was from that language. That language was one of the things that bonded us together. That language was a part of what gave us the spirit of who we are. And yet we're still, kind of in the colonized frame to where we may consider Creole to be a broken down language and not necessarily a formal language and so forth. And so I'd like to know, your take on that, because even though you grew up in a Creole household, I think your parents primarily spoke English, right?
Yes. So I am the last of three, and in my household, my parents, they spoke English to us. They spoke Creole to each other, though. They spoke to each other, but they spoke English to us, and I think that's a part of kind of like the assimilation of what happened to this country because they want you to be successful. They want you to have every chance and opportunity, to make it. And when when you mentioned that bit about the history of quail and kind of like that legitimizing,
Right.
it, I think that was one of the shame things, right? There's so many pieces of shame in our culture, but I think the fact that people kept on saying it was a broken language, that type of thing, I think it was one of those things that kind of made me feel a little disconnected from the language as well, because it was like, well, it's not a real language, it's broken down, French, right? Because they're giving us this perspective that French is the higher class, right? And if you speak Creole, Mundeo, you speaking that, that Bumbale, you don't have a place, right? So if you want to be in this society in America, you need to speak English
Right.
or right,
Here.
right. So my experience with Creole was traumatic. My experience with Creole was traumatic. I have a story, and I think for anybody who struggles with speaking Creole, if you can relate, please send me some love in the chat because it really, yep, that boomba laid down. If you can relate, because that was one of the things that really stopped me from speaking Creole in the first place, right? So when I was a child, someone called my house to speak to my mother, and instead of responding to that person in Creole, I responded to that person in English, and she did to jouer me. Like she fussed me out, and I was like, oh no, like I really felt like I had done something wrong, and eventually she actually she knew she was out of pocket because she came back, she called, but then she ended up passing by the house and she apologized, right? But the damage had already been done. So I was like, you know what? I'm not speaking Creole. I'm done. I'm not gonna do it, because if this is the reaction that I'm gonna get, that I'm not really Haitian if I don't speak Creole, and if it le grand moun parle avec aussi ou pas, répond na Creole, you're done, right? And so I was just like, and so every time I would be like super self-conscious about opening my mouth to say anything in Creole. So that's why when it came to Haitian preservation coming into play and recognizing, hey, I actually shut this part of myself down. I actually blocked this light.
Right.
I blocked this light because, one of the funny things is that when you're out in public, right, if you don't want other people to understand what you're saying,
You switch. I speaking Creole.
and then you're like, you're out of luck. You're out of luck if you can't speak in Creole. So it was kind of like this. I blocked this light, and that's what I'm gonna say. Creole is a light.
Right.
It's a beauty. It's our culture. It's a manifestation. It's a freedom language. It's literal. I love that it's a literal language. So it's earthy, right? It grounds you. It makes you feel connected not only to the people around you, but to the earth. So there's so much to love about Creole now, because I've come into that awareness and understanding about loving the pieces of myself, which caused me to write my first children's book, which is called A Time to Remember, a Haitian
Copy nearby.
bedtime story. No, we don't have one nearby. Oh man, but yes, I wrote this book and the song Anu Kembe with just my little Creole that I have. And it's been a bright thing in our lives. It's been a light for our children. It's been a light for us to help us feel more connected. There's a line in the book that I said, is Creole connects you more. It's not just about you speaking it. It's connecting you to your land, pays, lakai, your home. You know, you speak it because it connects you.
Right.
That's what Kreyol is. It's a
Let
connection.
me give you an example of what I think is hilarious because um, it's so intrinsic inside of us, you know. So for those who have been in the States for a very long time, I'm talking about our parents, you know, like our aunties and uncles and so forth like that. They speak that really good English, but let them get upset,
Mm.
right? Come out, they will jouer you in Creole from A to Z, you know what I'm saying? And so what I learn about what I'm learning as far as kind of putting the pieces together is that when we are triggered and we're emotional, we turn into a more instinctual brain.
Mm.
So naturally, what's going to come out of you when you are more emotional, when you're more at your base level, is the thing that's inside of you the most. And so it's funny to me how, you know, some of our parents doesn't they didn't really take the effort to really pour that in us, but yet it comes out of them even now. Que temos uma coisa. I get that pop, you know, and all these expressions that they come up with to chastise you, which tells me that it's deep inside of them. But it also tells me that it's connected to a specific power because it makes them feel powerful to speak in their native tongue to communicate something that needs to get communicated. So what it tells me is that as we, the diaspora, whether we use it or not, there is something that we can tap into by learning that language, by speaking that language, by sharing that language. And
Never too late. It's never too late.
wait, you know, my utiliser Kreyol until it gets fluid, you know.
Right.
So chaque fois que je retourne à Haïti, m'a fait un petit grand effort. Et puis c'est comme ça, ma tu quand qu'ils ont battu la Kreyol sur ya. My problem,
But
my problem is that sometimes I use my Kreyol in a caricature way.
yes, very true.
I hear what somebody else Creole sounds like, and because I don't have my own personality in Creole, and so I kind of embodies like a persona when I speak Creole, and so the more I practice, the more I can let that go and then allow my Creole to be my Creole.
Yes. So Tam was in the chat and she said the YouTube, so we have videos on our YouTube channel, Haitian Preservation YouTube channel, that have some preliminary vocabulary that if your child or you just want to brush up on, please go check it out, Haitian Preservation on YouTube. And the book, A Time to Remember, a Haitian American Bedtime Story, is on there for you to listen to. And if you want your own copy at home, please just we have to keep the language alive. And we know that it's important for us to do it, but sometimes there's just that little challenge because we live in, you know, in America and all this kind of stuff. But we can still find time. That's why I wrote it as a bedtime story, so that it's something that you can do every single night to refresh yourself, to talk in Creole, to get yourself used to the vocabulary so that your children, you know, sometimes it's just about your ear, you know. If you were to go to Haiti, I'm sure, right, and you spent a week, your Creole, you know, like you would be.
You gotta use it, and it will come out. You know, one of the things that I did to help me and to create a remembrance of even the slight Creole that's in me is that I added a lot of Creole language to my music. And hip hop is a mainstream American genre, but in a lot of the music that I create, I put that little Creole in there just to be that beacon to say, you know what, there's something that he's trying to point you back to or point you towards. And the first song in my bag, you know, I say something in Creole. I said, Papam sub okat mamam sub mamlat, you know. And then on Boule, you know, coupe tete Boule kai, that's repeated. And then on the problem with givers, it goes gadoneg sheesh, you know, like using the English language and then the play on words with sheesh and gadoneg. Look at this guy who's selfish. And then keep the change, go upstairs and be agenu, you know.
Yes, talk about that agenu.
Everybody know about that agenu, man. No. Go upstairs and be agenu, you know, like going to your parents' house. If you know what agenu is, you know what time it is, you know. And so
Tell them what it is. Tell them what it is.
Ajanu is basically kneeling down, like going upstairs and waiting. It's like prayer position, waiting for that punishment to come and find you. Go upstairs to be Ajanu. So I put those seeds in there, one, to make sure that the people on the island, if they ever hear my music, so they can hear at least one or two words, let them know, hey, I ain't forget about you. This is a beacon and a salute to my Haitian roots, but it's also to the diaspora, so that they can remember, hey, man, I know these stories too. Go upstairs and be Ajanu. Ajanu, come play.
Hold the Bible in this hand.
We don't want to traumatize the audience, man, so, but I think it's important for us to really, make that effort, man, make that effort, put a little Creole in everything that we got. A lot of the books that I have right now already written, one of my goals is to get all of them transposed into the Creole language so that they can be both in English and in Creole.
Yes.
Which brings us to an extra bonus as far as language and communication. I created my own alphabet, my own font, basically, not alphabet, but font, which is in English, the English alphabet A through Z, but it uses a different pictorial depiction of what those letters are.
Right.
And I believe that specific words have specific vibrations, but in the English language, there have been words, even in the Creole language sometimes, there have been words that we've utilized so much that it lost its frequency. And so the purpose, if you ever see Genius Font anywhere, it's because there's a specific frequency or vibration that this word has, that I'm hoping that eventually, by you reading it, by taking the time to read it and trying to understand it, it will create an alignment with you to basically gain something that I put in there for you. Like, it's easy to say I love you, but if you read it and somebody heartfelt wrote it down in their own handwriting. This is my handwriting that is digitized now, right? So to communicate a message to people through a specific font, that's me putting my specific desire for people to feel every time they see that font. So I have something on my page already. I hope people were paying attention to it. It's in Genius Font. Genius Font has its own page as well. But a lot of what we do in the future is next month, next week, next year, My next children's book will be 50% Genius Font, 50% English, meaning the story will be in both English and in Genius Font. And so I want people to get used to seeing something that challenges their brain to vibrate at a different frequency, to create new neural pathways. And I think for us, even trying to decipher sometimes the Creole language, for those who are in the diaspora, creates different neural pathways of understanding, so.
You are absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I want to applaud the ingenuity of what it is that Genius Font is, because like you said, if we're thinking about the future, Kreyol was born, okay? Kreyol has a birth date.
Right.
It was not always here. Remember, our ancestors came from different parts of West Africa, okay? So Kreyol is a mixture of all of those, I won't even say countries, all of those peoples, a mixture of peoples that represented that portion of Africa. And when they made their way over to Haiti, and the Tainos that were indigenous there, because Creole has Taino words in it as well, Arawak words in it as well. Creole was born. So if Creole can be born, right, then Genius Font can be born. And if Genius Font can be born, then whatever the next thing can be born. And I think that's the beauty of innovation. That's the beauty of being a forward thinker. That's the beauty of us coming together as a people and not being rigid and stuck in one kind of way of viewing things, but seeing that we are all evolving and things are being added as we go on, and we're making something beautiful together. So as a diaspora, Genius Font is a part of the diaspora moving and evolving together, right? We're not gonna go back to Haiti and then go backwards, right? we're connecting ourselves back to Haiti so that we can elevate IET with us, right? We want to vibrate on that higher level. So I wanted to say that I salute you, King, in your innovation of Genius Font, because that shows who you are and your authenticity. And I think more of us can continue to shine our light and be unapologetic about what it is, the future that we see for IET.
Here's what I'll say in closing, Mike, because you know, when we travel, you and I and the family, you know, we always listen for where we hear Creole language. You know, we were in Chicago, and when we hear that little Creole, be like, oh, nigga, like, hey, my people, you know, like, you feel that in mind, like, oh, are you seeing me? Are you seeing me? Yeah, you know, and then it automatically changes the vibration in the room. And so understand that that's a beacon. It's an invitation. Some people will hear the Creole language and be like, oh, I'm going to go that way, which is a good thing, you know, which is a good thing. It is an invitation and it's also a repellent. That's what language is, you know, and so that's what frequencies are. That's what vibrations are. And so for me, Genius Font, you know, the essence of it is an invitation, you know, for those whose brain are curious enough to say, let me try to decipher what this is saying. That's an invitation. There will be some people who will see it and be like, I don't want no parts of it. That's okay too. You know, it's not your frequency. And if it does become your frequency, listen, the water's always, you know, when people learn Creole, you know, it's fun to hear other races and cultures speak Creole, you know. And be like, ma parle ti Creole mwen, chaque fois mwen gagne, chaque chance mwen gagne, ma lage on ti Creole c'est new, you know. And they, listen, they having fun, you know.
Yeah.
So for us, we just have to put that effort in there. So put that effort in there and see if you can decipher what Genius Font is saying to you. You know, go have fun on the page, read it out, and it's really going to blossom into something to where I'm speaking to a specific person. I'm speaking to a specific group of people that can literally hear me.
Yes. Ashe, Ayibobo. So thank you guys again for joining us for this, our 4th live session. I'm so proud of us. Are you proud of us? For our 4th live session, again, we are going to be putting them on our Haitian Preservation YouTube channel. Of course, this is all in sponsorship of our United in Legacy campaign. Please make your impact. Go to the link in my bio and give towards the future of IET, because we are the future of IET. So thank you guys. Have a good night. C'est pour ça nous venons ensemble.